All right, DJ Chuang here. I'm joined by Dana Byers of Life Church, the online community pastor, and she's been a veteran in the social media church world. So I am so honored to have a few minutes to chat with her about her years of experience in doing online church and her new role here. So Dana, welcome to the Social Media Church podcast.
Thank
And
you.
first, let's start with your ministry. You've had quite a journey over the past few years with Blue Door Ministries. So tell us about how that started and what kind of things happened through that.
Sure, I'd love to. Gosh, it was about 5 years ago that God
Wow.
very clearly led our family to sell everything we own, leave our jobs here in America, and move overseas. He led us to London, England, which was our home base, and my husband Chris and I started working to try to just do some different things in global evangelism. We're really passionate about international evangelism and the church, the capital C church, globally, people coming around the gospel and expanding it globally together through church unity. And we had personally been impacted by Church Online as partners here at lifechurch.tv, and we've been here for about 10 years now. So we went on our own, took our two young kids, and from London, my husband worked in connecting with local churches and doing free consulting using open.lifechurch.tv. Also trying to reach out to some network churches from lifechurch.tv as well. And my primary passion was connecting with people online and forming community there, sharing the gospel, discipling people, starting small groups. And man, when we hit the ground in London, I really, just over the first few months, we really saw God build that passion within me, and that was our first experience with Church Online at lifechurch.tv. Was just a few weeks after they launched in 2006, and we've just been really passionate about it ever since.
Wow, that is a long run. 10 years. I mean, that's before Twitter, before Facebook, just when Google was kind of becoming popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really been incredible over the years seeing how God has taken a community of people who are passionate about global evangelism, really focused on what's happening in the church and trying to learn what people are doing in different countries, to learn from each other and to share resources. And in the last 10 years, we've been really blessed to witness through the lens of what's happening here at lifechurch.tv, what God is doing, and Chris, my husband, and I were just really personally blessed to have the opportunity to go overseas, and we felt that when we moved overseas 5 years ago that our primary goal would be to certainly as volunteers, which is what we were, represent lifechurch.tv, but also form something on our own that we call bluedoor.tv. And we did that because lifechurch.tv wasn't looking necessarily to expand globally, and so we had a really cool experience of starting something using what we had learned, certainly having the blessing of lifechurch.tv and having the support and relationships here to help us get that rolling. And as volunteer leaders of Church Online at lifechurch.tv, expand things using lifechurch.tv, but also trying to help church leaders in non-English speaking countries share the gospel online. So up until about a year ago, I was working nearly full-time on that, creating free content, giving training, providing resources to church leaders in a number of non-English speaking countries, and trying to help them find creative ways based upon their local culture as to how they can connect to people in their countries who are far from God and not yet willing to come into the local church, and form relationships that way.
Wow, I mean, when we're talking about the world, this would be far more than an hour of conversation. So to kind of summarize it, can you describe how many countries and how many church and ministry groups you've connected with over those 5 years, and what were 2 or 3 of your biggest learnings in connecting with the church outside of the U.S.?
That's a good question. I'm going to process your second question here for a minute. I can tell you on the front end, your first part of the question, DJ, gosh, I don't have a specific number for that, I have to say. I haven't looked for a while because I got to a point where I realized I so badly wanted to see God do more internationally that I was really holding tightly to those numbers. And then I, about a year ago, moved to a point where I realized that some of those relationships were the ones that we most needed to invest in to see what God would do through those indigenous leaders. So I can tell you that we were personally blessed to be part in helping launch about 10 unique online churches in non-English speaking countries. As far as providing resources, training, equipment, and free consultation, there were a couple thousand churches that we got to connect with. And the stories of what we saw God doing, not only through the local churches, but through local churches connecting to try to share the gospel online and to try to pray and minister to people online, impacted me in a way that few things have. And so I think what the second part of your question was, will you remind me to make sure I got that right?
What can the American church learn from the church outside of the U.S.?
Yes, great.
Particularly
Yes.
with online church.
The first and biggest lesson that I think I gathered pretty quickly, but am still processing and grasping, is the fact that no matter where we originate, when we go into another territory, we would be gravely mistaken to think that we bring the answers with us. My experience was that sitting, listening, and learning blessed me almost as much as the handful of times I got to share something that helped other church leaders. And to just sort of unpack that a little bit, I think what I want, the way I could best say it is that we were happy to say anytime, this is what's working for us, but let's dig into more of your local culture, and let's dig into the religious history of your country, and let's dig into what's happening in current events in your country and see what we can do using social media and church online to have a bigger impact than just simply telling you what worked for us. So that was a huge lesson and really kind of a fun challenge to face every time we connected with a new partner through bluedoor.tv. And I think the other thing was that, years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I remember being told by a number of people, you won't be doing this in a year. This is just a flash in the pan. This won't last. And while I'm not one to sit around and debate too long because I'm much more of an activator and would just rather give it a try, thankfully I wasn't caught up in too many of those conversations. But when people shared that with me with good intentions and in love, I really was encouraged by the Holy Spirit that if we were doing this for the sole purpose of expanding God's kingdom, He would keep blessing it, and He would keep honoring our attempts using social media and church online. And by golly, He has. He really has. We have seen phenomenal things that only God could do happen through online ministry.
Yeah, would you share one of those stories with our audience?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. We have a lot of stories, but a recent favorite of mine was a story where shortly after I came on staff here at lifechurch.tv as community pastor for Church Online, we had a young man, come into live prayer at lifechurch.tv Church Online during one of our experiences, and he connected with a volunteer and was asking that volunteer for prayer. Over the course of that prayer conversation, this young man committed his life to Christ, and because we had such a good volunteer working with this person, he explained to him that his next step would be baptism, and he could get plugged into local community. The interesting thing was the young man happened to be in a country in Africa. And so on a whim, this volunteer contacted me and said, do you know anyone in this country? And so I went back through our bluedoor.tv contacts over the last 5 years, and sure enough, we had connected with someone who had agreed to our statement of faith, a local church that is embraces online ministry, understanding it's sort of the doormat or the welcome mat to the local church. In many cases, it was an opportunity to connect this man from Church Online in Africa to a local church that was actually in his city, and say to him, this local church will welcome you with open arms. They have a baptism coming up in 2 weeks, and we would love to connect you there. I think that is just the cusp, kind of a taste of what God can do using social media and Church Online.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And that's a good segue to move into your time now with lifechurch.tv full-time as online community pastor. And in some ways, it sounds like it's been a convergence that as you've developed Blue Door ministry and connected with the churches around the world, that it's also been a vital help for Life Church to extend their ministry around the world too, because they're running, what, 50 plus
Yes.
online worship services now and over all kinds of time zones, and really being intentional about reaching the world. So it's really valuable to have you there. Describe a bit of your role there.
Yeah, my role as a community pastor is something that is still being defined, and I love that because we try to shift as we see God doing different things. Currently, what I'm doing is I'm part of what we call the response team at Church Online, and the response team is responsible for connecting with the people who come to an online experience and helping them take their next step. Their next step might be something as simple as attending Church Online again, or connecting with us on Facebook. It could be committing their life to Christ, or being baptized in a local church, or joining a small group online. There are so many different next steps that we've identified they could take. So our team as a whole has nearly 300 volunteers now. Our volunteers are international, and the volunteers are wonderful because many of them are actually serving at one of our 50-plus experiences during the week. A number of them serve on a team that answers and replies to prayers and questions that we receive offline when we don't have an experience happening. And then we also have a team of people who work specifically with social media through Facebook and Twitter to reach out, to share, to connect, and engage. And so I get to help oversee these leaders that we're developing. And it's a very fascinating task for me because our team of a couple hundred volunteers, many of them have never even stepped foot inside a lifechurch.tv campus, into one of our churches. So because of that, we are constantly injecting culture into our leaders, and we're learning from them. They're involved in great local churches around the world. They've got good cultural local experience that they can share with us. And by the way, we've formed a really strong community that we're just trying to grow. We find that even though we do have online groups at lifechurch.tv, Church Online, one of our strongest and most powerful groups is the community we have among volunteers. And it's really awesome to be part of these people who are evangelistic, passionate about the global church, and really committed to helping us all reach people who are far from God.
Well, it sounds like there's several dimensions to that. So it's not just online church to connect people that are part of the worship experience online and talking with each other. It sounds like they're also on the ground connecting with their local community, and you're developing these processes to help people move along the next steps, also mobilizing them. So what does that look like?
That looks like what I believe is a primary focus for Church Online everywhere in months and years to come. And this is actually why I'm on staff at lifechurch.tv. I adore this church. It's always been my home church. But when we recognized, Alan George, our Church Online pastor, and I came together over a conversation where I just sort of poured my heart out about what I was praying for and seeking would be next for online churches everywhere. He said, hey, Dana, let's talk about this some more and see if this isn't something that our whole team can work on together. So, of course, I jumped at the opportunity because we are looking to do a number of things that would mobilize local ministers. I believe it's a great opportunity to use Church Online, the free resources available, and the ministry available around the clock to help people who are indigenous to their area, who understand the culture, who have a heart for evangelism and really passionate about their local country. They can use Church Online. We can develop them as leaders, train them as ministers, and empower them and mobilize them locally to make a greater impact than we can. Lifechurch.tv is not looking to plant churches in every city around the world. I believe that God already has many indigenous leaders that He's raised up that we can impact and learn from as together we partner to make a difference in a lot of local communities.
Now, there's a couple essentials to being a part of the local church or being part of a church. A couple of them that come to mind. And this is kind of the challenge question round, if you will. Membership, discipleship, communion, baptism you've alluded to. How do those things happen online, or does online help facilitate those on the ground? Describe what it looks like for lifechurch.tv.
For lifechurch.tv, we do have, for our Church Online team, which is what we call our volunteer core of people, we gather a couple times a year in separate special events. Some people come local face-to-face. Sometimes we stream it online, but we're always able to gather together that way. And we'll have our own unique private worship service where we worship together. Alan George will often share a word with us. We get to encourage each other and share stories. During that time, we sometimes have communion. We have had experiences where people commit their lives to Christ at Church Online, decide to get baptized locally, and share that with their Church Online community in a number of ways, and that's a really cool way to do that too. And I've really found that probably a frustration sometimes with Church Online is not that we're questioning how do we it's not so much the idea of, okay, how do we make communion or baptism or membership or things like that happen online, but that it almost seems like we're taking, from my perspective, we occasionally try to transfer exactly what's happening in the local church and make it happen at Church Online. When Church Online is a different animal to me. It's really I think I used the term earlier, kind of a welcome mat. It's sort of like we're gathering people in and forming relationship. It's very evangelistic. We do disciple people, and we are happy to connect them to a local church or to invite them to stay with us as long as they want to and to get involved in serving as well. We don't have a membership structure. We are very hands-off about that. I think often, most likely, we see people commit as to maybe what a number of other churches might call membership through tithing, serving, attendance, discipling others, being involved in a small group. These are all things that are indicators of maybe membership in someone's heart, but not an outward written commitment or anything like that.
Wow, that's really profound insight, to realize that Church Online is a different animal, and not try to retrofit everything that we do on the ground or what's been done in the local church for the past 400 years and just duplicate an online version. So that's really good. It's good contextualization, and it's good being a missionary that way. Great to hear. Okay, one more question. And since you're dealing with an international church, how do you deal with the different languages?
Oh, well, that's very exciting. Using the Church Online platform that we use, we use Google Translate. The chat room does auto-translate for us, which is wonderful. But we're getting to a point, thank goodness, where as we add volunteers who speak a different language, we are able to, for example, with our response team, which provides answers to questions and prayer for people who send in maybe just an email to the Church Online team or a prayer request when we are offline, when we're not having a live experience. We do have a couple volunteers who might speak a different language, and we can transfer that directly to them so that the person who provides the ministry speaks the first sort of native tongue of the person who sent in the request. Beyond that, we are also able to make, again, these network connections that I believe is part of the reason that I'm so blessed to be on staff here at lifechurch.tv, because the time we spent overseas forming a network with a number of great church leaders means that we have sort of a reference group who've said, we're happy to help you provide ministry. So, for example, I received a voicemail in my inbox overnight from someone who was up during the day while I was asleep. She's in another country in Central Europe. English is her second language, and she has some spiritual questions and wants someone to pray for her. So later on today, I'm going to call her back in her country and do all that for her, but I also have an excellent local pastor and congregation that I can connect her with who speak her native language and who quite possibly could invite her over for coffee, or she could even go to their church. So it's really I think important to start looking at the ministry we provide, at taking the extra step, doing it with excellence, asking God, God, who do I know? Uh, where could I help? What resource could I provide this person? Not only to pray for them and to show them what God's Word says, but to go the extra mile and to really think about each individual's lives and what a unique opportunity it is for us through Church Online to plug them in to a resource that maybe no one else in their lives could provide them. I think it's really an honor that we get to do that. If I have a voice message like that from someone in Central Europe, she's giving me a great opportunity, and I don't want to waste it. So it's a real blessing for our team to have some contacts that we can, after we minister to a person, connect them to so that we have a better fit for a positive outcome for the person we're ministering to.
So good to connect and to hear how you're doing that around the world and really providing a personal and incarnational touch to doing church online. And it's helped me to just see a lot more putting on the flesh to this rather than just a stereotype of just blasting and messaging and broadcasting. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would like to just reaffirm that, DJ. What you said is so true. So much of what happens at Church Online sort of takes hits a lot because it's very technical, and I love technology. I think technology is fantastic, but we would be wrong to say, if we really stop and look at what's happening, to say that it's truly technical. The fact is, there are human hearts that break for what breaks God's hearts behind that. We are relational beings, and in some cases, particularly in the way culture is today, regardless of the country, in some cases our best opportunity to connect with a person who is hurting or lost is using technology, letting them relationally connect, and then leading them to Christ that way. I think it's just a beautiful, really it's a love story. Every connection at Church Online is kind of like a love story. It's the way God connects with each individual using the technology and then surprises them with His love through other humans.
Beautiful. Well, it sounds like it's just a tip of the iceberg. We see the activity that's kind of on the technical side, but so good to hear the face-to-face and the personal touch that you are a part of providing. Okay, Dana, thank you for being part of our conversation here at Social Media Church, and we'll stay connected with you online. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, DJ. I really appreciate it. This was fun. I love getting to